I love being a girl most of the time. Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. Today I want to talk to you about menstrual cycles, birth control pills, all kinds of fun stuff that makes being a woman so much more interesting. This was actually a requested topic. I've had some requests to talk about menstrual cycles, birth control, things like that. So, little disclaimer, well, big disclaimer really. I just want to say first of all, none of what I'm about to say is a substitution for medical advice. I am not a doctor. I don't play a doctor on YouTube. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical expert. I've done a lot of research, and I'm going to mention some of the books that I recommend on these topics, but some of the research I've done is from actual people who are in the medical community. Some are people who have a more holistic take. Some of the things I'm going to talk about are just my own personal views and my own personal experience and things like that. One of my biggest messages is for women to tune into their body and tune into their intuition, and to not outsource their decisions, medical or otherwise, to other people. Always do your research. Always pay attention to who your information is coming from, what their motives are for their information coming to you. Paying attention to those things, learning and having the intellectual knowledge of researching and studying things yourself, having your own intuition to when your body is telling you if something is right or wrong. I encourage you not to outsource those to other people. That said, I'm not going to tell you what you should do or what you shouldn't do. Again, using your intuition and using your own judgment goes for my information as well. So if stuff I say does not resonate for you, that's okay. I just want to open up the conversation and let people know that nobody knows your body better than you. I also would say if somebody has a problem with you, whether it be a doctor, I don't care how decorated they are as a medical professional or what their experience is, if you are not allowed to ask questions, if you're not allowed to express concerns, if they're just dismissing you and they're not actually listening to you and your concerns or answering your questions or anything like that, that to me is a red flag. That to me is a concern, and I feel like that happens a lot in the medical community. If we've learned anything, I think, at least what I've learned from the past like 2 years about things that have happened with medical community, pharmaceutical companies, things like that, it's time to stop outsourcing our health and our body decisions to somebody else. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a doctor. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't follow medical advice. It just means that your intuition should always come first, and you have a right to ask questions, to learn more information. You have a right to all of those things, and I think that's really important to remember, because especially with women, I think, and I think this does happen a little bit more with the feminine, there's not as much research done when it comes to things when it comes to women. A lot of the research that happens, the studies that get done, they get done with men, and then they just sort of translate it to feminine bodies. A lot of people out there have no understanding of the female body, of the female cycles. The feminine is connected with nature, so we're not as predictable. We just aren't. Our bodies are constantly changing and constantly evolving, and I think it's just really important to not outsource that knowledge too much to other people, and I think it's important for us to know more about our own bodies. And you know, women very often, not just in the medical community, but in every place, we kind of get dismissed when we ask too many questions or we try to understand things. Very often we can get dismissed as like, well, why are you asking questions, or what do you know? You're worthy of knowing. You're worthy of having the information and having the knowledge. You're not an inconvenience. And I think that a lot of women get treated that way in situations like this. So that's just what I want to say about that. Long disclaimer. But anyway, I really do think it's sad that some of this stuff, I mean, I knew some stuff, and I'm pretty educated. You know, I have a college degree. I did very well in school, particularly in, you know, the sciences and things like that. And so, you know, I mean, I'm a pretty knowledgeable person. That said, it amazes me that I got to like 40 years of life and there's so many things that I'm like, why did nobody tell me that when I was younger? Like, I'm in a woman's body. Somebody should have told me how my body worked when my body first started functioning, right? Like, or when I was old enough to learn these lessons. Like, it kind of boggles my mind. So I always just was under the impression that your menstrual cycle essentially was you're bleeding or you're not bleeding. And there was like a PMS period when you were about to bleed, and like that was it. That's all anyone ever really told me. I mean, I knew there was like something called ovulation, but I don't really know much about what it was or anything like that. So there are 4 stages to your menstrual cycle. Typically, what's considered the beginning of your menstrual cycle is the first day of your bleed, and that is known as your menstrual period. Our menstrual cycles as women, because we're so tied with nature, they can sync up with the moon. And if you have a natural cycle, like you're not actually changing it due to hormones or things like that, the more you are in nature, the more you are connected with nature, the more your cycle will possibly connect to the moon, either the new moon or the full moon. It can be in between. I don't want you to get too concerned if your menstrual cycle doesn't sync up with the moon. It doesn't have to, but typically as women, when we spend more time in nature, we spend more time outside, you know, in the moonlight, your body can sync up to the moon. Women's cycles can actually sync up with each other. If you spend a lot of time with other women who are menstruating, your cycles can link up together, because as women, we're meant to be in a community together. Like, we're meant to go through these phases and transitions together as a community. Women are not meant to be enemies. We're actually meant to work together. So I have a lot of videos talking about that aspect of things, so I won't get into that too much here. But our menstrual cycles can always shift and evolve. On average, women have about a 28-day cycle total. If you don't have a 28-day cycle, don't freak out. I know there are certain indications if you have a really short cycle or you have a really long cycle. I'm not going to get into all those things. I'm going to give you some resources to do more research, but you can have an irregular cycle. Your cycle doesn't have to be on the exact day all the time. As long as it's kind of within a similar range, you're probably doing okay. The different phases of the cycle actually very much link up with the 4 seasons. There's 4 different aspects of the menstrual cycle, and they kind of link up with the 4 seasons. The beginning of your menstrual cycle is usually considered the first day of your bleed. So the days of your bleed are your menstrual phase. If you think of it as the winter phase, that's the phase where you kind of want to curl up in a ball. You know, you want to actually keep yourself warm. That's actually really important, to keep your body temperature warm when you're in your menstrual phase. That's usually the phase when you're releasing and letting go of a lot of things, right? Everything is sort of dying off and releasing and letting go. Keep yourself warm. That's the time you want to slow down. And that's something that I definitely did not do for a long time. You want to slow down. Ideally, you want to set up your schedule so that you're not as stressed during that time period. Really open up your schedule as much as you possibly can. Obviously, life is what it is, but the more that you prioritize getting things done in other parts of your menstrual cycle when you have more energy and you get to relax more in this time period, the better off you're gonna be. Your hormones are gonna thank you. Particularly on the first couple of days of your bleed, that's the time when you really want to rest and relax. I find it interesting that, and I'll talk a little bit more about my birth control journey and things like that and whatever, but now that I'm actually having a natural menstrual cycle and I've connected to that, my body just won't let me power through when it's that time of the month. Like, when I start my bleed, I'm like, my body's like, nope, you're resting. I don't care. Like, it just makes me now, is what it is, right? And I'm always grateful when I do give myself that time to rest. So when you start coming out of your menstrual phase, you go into your follicular phase. That's usually the time that you get a lot more energy. Now, that energy kind of takes a little bit of time to kind of gear up. So you have to be careful that we don't jump from the menstrual phase. If you feel like once your bleed is over and you're like, I'm gonna jump right into my follicular phase and get a ton of stuff done, go for it, great. If that's really what your body feels like. If not, give yourself time, let yourself take time to, you know, build up that energy. Your follicular phase is kind of like spring, right? Spring comes after winter. Winter, everything is kind of, you've been cozied up because everything is sort of cold. It's sort of like died off, you've released and let things go, and then spring is the time when things start to kind of blossom and bloom again, right? So if you think of your follicular phase as like springtime, when things are starting to bloom and blossom, and like that's the time when you can really start to accomplish things, get things done, like you have this like spring cleaning mentality, you know, you have that rejuvenation, that energy. Then you go into your ovulation phase. Now, the actual day that you ovulate is probably going to vary from woman to woman. It may vary depending on your cycle. I mean, really, it's your ovulation happens in like a day. But depending on your age and depending on your cycles and things like that, the effects of your ovulation phase can be felt in different amounts before or after you ovulate. Your ovulation is the time when you're fertile. It's the time when your body's like, I'm ready to make a baby, right? Whether you actually want to make a baby or not, your body's ready to make a baby. So that's like summer, because you're hot, right? Like, you're hot. You're probably giving off pheromones. If you're in a relationship, you probably want to hump like bunnies, like, you know, that's the time. And if you're trying to have a baby, go for it. Like, more power to you. That's the time to do it. If you're not trying to make a baby, that's the time when you definitely need to be more aware of your birth control options, because you're ready to make a baby. But that's also the time when you're ready to create new things. Like, that can be a really great time to be creative. You know, all kinds of creative aspects and things can come through you, not just preparing a baby, but that's the time when you can actually be brainstorming what are some really exciting goals you have, like that kind of thing, like that kind of energy. You know, that summertime, like, I don't know, for me in summertime, like, I just feel like on top of the world, you know what I mean? Like, it's just this great summertime energy. Ovulation ends, that's when you go into your luteal phase. That's sort of your quote-unquote PMS phase, or what we think about that as. And your luteal phase is, you know, at that point your body is sort of like, oh, if you are pregnant, obviously it's going to go into preparing for a pregnancy. But if you don't actually get pregnant in your ovulation phase, your luteal phase is sort of that time period where it's like, oh, we didn't get pregnant. So that's kind of, you have a big shift in hormones in your luteal phase. That's considered fall. Your body is kind of preparing for winter. It's preparing to slow down. That's usually where you're going to find most of your PMS symptoms. If you have PMS symptoms, if you have drastic PMS symptoms, which are very normalized in our society, but usually most PMS symptoms are a signal to you that your body needs something it's not getting, or is getting too much of something that it doesn't want too much of. Usually those PMS symptoms are a symbol of something being off, and, you know, could be serious, could be not, probably not serious, but just usually indication of something. However, in a normal menstrual cycle where you don't have like massive PMS symptoms, that's still going to be the time when you're probably going to want to be a little less sociable. You know, you're going to kind of want to be getting ready for winter. You know what I mean? Like, you're storing up for winter. You may be more hungry. Probably going to feel a little bit less sociable. I know for me, in my luteal phase, I'm much more sensitive when I'm dealing with people. Like, things that I normally could fluff off in my follicular ovulation phase, when I'm in my luteal phase, I'm just like, I take everything a lot more personal. I am more emotional. A lot of women are. It's due to the shift in your hormones and stuff. Like, that's really fall and you're getting ready for winter. Then once your luteal phase is over, you go into your menstrual phase and start the process all over again. It's the feminine cycle. So I really do encourage women to, as much as you can, I mean, obviously, life is life, and you know, you can only do so much, but I really do encourage women to, as much as possible, to try to structure their life around knowing their menstrual cycle, and, you know, track it for a little bit. Honestly, I track it with a notebook. I'm old school because I'm old. I do like just a notebook with handwriting things down. I don't use an app tracker thing. I just don't. That's just not how I gravitate towards doing things. But calendar, anything, just try to kind of keep track of your cycle and get a general idea of like, okay, I know in this phase I'm gonna want to slow down. In this phase I'm not gonna want to schedule as many social events. Whereas in this phase I know I'm gonna be like social butterfly, or I'm gonna be really a go-getter. One thing that people have said to do, I'm not really great at doing this, but other people have said, like, when you have that energetic phase, like, do a lot of food prep, like meal prep and things, so that when you are in your more luteal, definitely in your menstrual phase, you don't have to spend as much time cooking, you know, or like you get your house cleaning done in that time period when you have a ton of energy. But then, you know, when you don't, you don't have to spend as much time cleaning your house. You just let the vacuum go because you spent time, you know, vacuuming your other phase. Now, you also don't want to burn yourself out in the part of your menstrual cycle where you do have energy, because you can still overdo it. But I think it's important to note. And also, as women, you can do what you want. You can live the life you want. Our entire structure of our system, you want to call it patriarchy, whatever, is designed for the men's cycle. Men have a 24-hour hormone cycle that kind of each day their hormones kind of transition in the same 24-hour hormone cycle. Women's hormone cycles are on average 28 days. They vary obviously in length from woman to woman. So the fact that we have this structure in our school systems, in most work environments where things work on an every day, here's the same thing you do every day, that's very much a masculine mindset. The feminine mindset doesn't really work like that. Now, I'm not trying to be like all man-hating and be like, yeah, men created this workforce, they created the school systems just for men because they wanted to suppress women. They created the systems that way because they worked for men, because men were doing them. You know, I mean, it would be dumb if they didn't create those systems to suit men, because men were the ones in the workforces. They were the ones in schools at a certain point in time. you know, so they created them so they worked for them. Whether or not we should be changing the system because women are in the workforce or not, or what that, I mean, that's a whole other discussion for a whole other day that I'm not really going to dive into. But understanding that as a woman, you're not just a girly man, right? Like SNL, I'm probably aging myself a lot. I'm thinking of SNL, like the girly man, like the, you know, like, was it Dana Carvey, I think, when he was like, anyway, never mind. I'm getting off track here. As women, we're unique. We have unique body chemistry to men. We are not designed to work the same way as men. We're not designed for the same daily structure as men. We're designed to have different energy levels and different structures at different times during the month, as well as men have different energy levels at different times during the day. So women are not men. All I'm gonna say. Why that's controversial, I don't know, but there's gonna be people who aren't gonna like me saying that. Is what it is. There is also a lot of research that shows that women are attracted to different types of men at different phases in their cycle. So in their ovulation phase, when they're horny, they're probably going to be more attracted to men who are typically in their masculine energy, because as a woman, if you're in your feminine energy, you're going to be attracted to a man who has more masculine energy, because that's sexual polarity. That's that mating thing. Like that's that biological mating response is, I want a man because I want to breed, right? I mean, that's your, not saying that you actually want to do that. However, your body wants to do that. Like your body is like, I mean, as much as men love to say like, oh no, I'm biologically programmed to spread the seed, that's why I need to bang a bunch of women or whatever, which, you know, I think it's a ridiculous excuse that men use. But in the same way, women in our ovulation phase want to hump anything that breathes because our bodies are like, hey, now's the time to have a baby, right? We're all capable of overcoming those natural biological urges and using our brains and deciding whether or not having a baby or who we have a baby with makes sense in that moment. But we do still have that biology that's making us attracted to certain types of people. In the same way that, you know, because men really have the capability of producing at any point, right? They are attracted to women that have characteristics that they believe as being fertile. Women are attracted to characteristics in men that indicate they have a very good genetic makeup that will be good for having a baby. So they tend to be attracted to more of the masculine men with the jaw lines and the men with the muscles, the height, those kind of things that are characteristics that they would want to pass on to their children, so children would have a better chance of survival. This is all biology from a time period when we were all, you know, cavemen roaming the earth, right? However, when women are not in that ovulation phase, they tend to be more drawn to men who are kinder, nicer, sweeter, which is one of the reasons why I really do believe that as women, we really want a man who can do both, right? And I have a lot of videos where I talk about this. I have a video talking about the sort of the alpha beta male stereotypes in the media and things like that we get programmed into believing. Men get programmed into believing that they have to be either the alpha or the beta, either the good guy or the bad guy, so to speak, like one or the other, like the macho asshole, the nice guy, like they have to pick one. At the end of the day, as women, we want a man who can do both. Like we want a man who can be a strong masculine leader, but we also want him to be able to have heart and integrity and to be a loving husband and father, right? We want a man who we're sexually attracted to, that we want to mate with, but we also want a man who we believe will be around to love and care for us and to protect and provide for our family. And I really do believe that most men are capable of doing both. It's just a matter of, you know, our society conditions men to be irresponsible and whatever. That's a whole other video. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's about women choosing the nice guy or the bad boy. At the end of the day, a woman wants a man who can embody both, so that when she is in a certain phase of her cycle, she can get that masculine, you know, sexual polarity because she's horny, right? Whereas when she wants loving and nurturing, she has a man who's able to do that as well. In the same way that, like, look, men want women who embody all of the feminine archetypes. Women want men who can embody all of the masculine archetypes as well. And I have a lot of videos about that, so I'm not going to dive into that too much in this video. One of the problems that happens now in our current society is the fact that many women are on some form of hormonal birth control. It's rampant. It's everywhere. And I was on hormonal birth control for most of my adult life. I have a video talking about my experience going off hormonal birth control. Since going off of it, I can tell you I've done a lot more research, and I'm so glad that I went off of it. A big regret that I have is that I was on it for so long. And this is my own personal experience, but this is also from a lot of research I've done, that when women are on hormonal birth control, they're attracted to different partners. I don't see a lot of research that specifies this, although it would make sense that because women are not ovulating when they're on hormonal birth control, they are attracted to the weaker man, because they don't have that primal instinct to mate within them, so they tend to be attracted to men who are more passive or weaker. Because as a woman, you're not tapped into that feminine sexual polarity of being attracted to a masculine partner. That was definitely my situation for most of my life. And they actually have done a lot of studies saying that when a woman is on hormonal birth control and she meets a man, she decides to marry him, she stays on that because she's not ready to get pregnant, and then she goes off hormonal birth control, she loses all attraction to her husband. Like, they've decided to have a baby and now she can't have sex with him because she's not attracted to him at all. So when you choose a partner while you're on hormonal birth control, your hormones are not in a natural state, so who you're attracted to is gonna change. So I think it's really important to be careful when you're picking a partner if you are on hormonal birth control. You may not actually be picking somebody who's actually aligned with you because you're not operating at your optimum hormone cycle. You're not actually having a natural menstrual cycle. It's something that I never knew. I didn't learn until recently that technically the bleed that you have while you're on the pill is actually an artificial bleed that they only put in because women were too freaked out to take the birth control when they didn't have that bleed because they were convinced that they were pregnant. Like, it was a whole, yeah, I can give you some more information about where to look into more information about that. But yeah, when you open up the can of worms about hormonal birth control and what it's doing to women and their bodies, it's a whole Pandora's box, right? I view it so differently. And I give you this information not to tell you, I don't want anybody out there just to go off hormonal birth control and then be like, and then get pregnant and be like, well, you told me to go off of it. It's important to actually take charge of your menstrual cycle, of your fertility cycle, and things like that. I do believe in people making the choice whether or not they have a baby, whether they don't have a baby. I think that choice comes before the choice that we talk about in our society, which I'm not going to dive into in this video. You know, you choose when you have sex, you choose who you have sex with. Those things are really important choices. I think they're probably some of the most vital choices that women are ever going to make. If you choose to go on some type of hormonal birth control, it's your choice. I'm making this video primarily to say that there's a lot of things about hormonal birth control that are not told to women. A lot of side effects. Women are not being fully informed, and I really do believe that women should get all the information so then they can make a decision. And if you know all of the side effects, if you know all of the risks, and you're still like, I want to go on hormonal birth control because I think those risks are worth me not getting pregnant, fine. I'm not here to tell you not to make that decision. I do believe that there are a lot of women who are going on some type of hormonal birth control believing that it's safe and the only side effect is that they just won't get pregnant. And there's no big deal. And I think that that's very misleading, and that's where I have the problem. If you are an informed consumer and you make a decision from that information or from your intuition or from your instincts, and you make that decision for yourself as an adult, and we're also not making this decision just with adults. A lot of people who are not even 18, so they're not even legal adults, are going on hormonal birth control. Not even because I didn't go on hormonal birth control because I was sexually active. I went on it originally because my menstrual cramps were so bad and nobody thought to treat those and figure out what that was. They just put me on hormonal birth control, so there you go. I mean, I was actually told that there were health benefits to being on hormonal birth control, so there you go. But if you are sexually active and you absolutely do not want to have children and you believe that the health risks are, you know, worth the benefit of being able to be sexually active without getting pregnant, I'm not here to tell you otherwise. I would highly recommend that if you are planning on, I would suggest though, because of all of the research, if you are planning on marrying somebody, dedicating your life to someone, you at least experience time with them off of hormonal birth control to know if you actually still have chemistry with them. I mean, I think that's really important, in knowing somebody throughout the course of your menstrual cycles. As far as coming off hormonal birth control, I have a video where I talked about my experience coming off of it, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about my background with hormonal birth control in this video. I will say that it's been 2 years. I think it's been like 2 years since I went off hormonal birth control, and I was on it for like over 20 years. It's interesting because most of the research I've done actually indicates that if you went on hormonal birth control for a particular health reason, like not simply just to avoid pregnancy, but you went on it specifically because you needed to treat something that was going on hormonally, it really just masks the symptoms. So when you come off of hormonal birth control, your symptoms are all going to come back. I've seen that over and over again. I've known people that's happened to. My situation, it didn't happen like that. Now, I believe there's a few factors as to why that didn't happen. I went on hormonal birth control originally because I had incredibly painful menstrual cramps. I was really scared that if I went off of it, that those menstrual cramps would come back. Now, bear in mind, I had those menstrual cramps when I was in high school. I went off hormonal birth control when I was 40. So again, we're talking 20 years difference. I have not had issues with menstrual cramps. I really do believe that a big part of that is because my menstrual cramp issues were not solely hormonal or not solely menstrual. They probably were an indication of my lifestyle choices at the time. I had a horrible diet at that point in my life, which, to be honest, most high school kids do. It was a standard American diet. I was eating a lot of crap, which most Americans eat. I had tons of like digestion, gut issues that were just a mess. And I was very high stress. I was a very anxious teenager. I was an anxious kid. Like they didn't diagnose people as having anxiety back then, but I had anxiety like off the charts when I was younger. Like I was always an anxious, like a big ball of anxiety. So I really do believe that the reason why I didn't end up going back and having those problems was because I had changed my lifestyle. I eat much healthier. I deal with coping with my anxiety and things like that so that I don't have the issues that were probably leading to the menstrual cramping initially. So I stayed on hormonal birth control for so long because I was actually terrified of going off of it because I just thought it was better for me. That's kind of what I was told, and I wish I had known about some of this stuff earlier so I could have gone off of it earlier. But overall, I haven't really had a lot of side effects. I do know a lot of people that had a lot of side effects, but I imagine that the people that had more side effects were probably people who went on it because they had more hormonal or medical issues going on it than I did. So it frustrates me because I didn't really need to go on it, because if I had just known that I could have fixed other aspects of my lifestyle, I wouldn't have needed to go on it. Now, the fact that I haven't gotten pregnant in this time, I mean, I haven't really been hugely sexually active over the course of my life. So is that the reason why I don't have kids and I didn't end up pregnant? Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. So again, I do believe as women, make the choice, make the decision yourself, but really pay attention to all of your options. And if you are thinking about going on hormonal birth control for a reason other than to prevent pregnancy, I would actually look into ways of seeing if you can actually treat whatever symptom or problem you're having, as opposed to masking it with something like hormonal birth control. It's funny when people ask me, when I tell them I've gone off hormonal birth control and they ask me what I'm using for birth control, I like to tell them men's personalities. That's the comedian in me. I can't help myself. In reality, since I've been off hormonal birth control, I've actually been celibate, and I am in a place right now, I've kind of always been in this mindset. I haven't always made the best choices in this area, but I personally wouldn't be sexually active with somebody that I wasn't in an exclusive relationship with and that I wasn't comfortable enough with the possibility of getting pregnant. My choice, my decision. Not saying that's the right decision for everybody. I'm just saying that that's my own personal decision. I have studied about like fertility, cycling, tracking your fertility and things like that. There are only a limited number of days per month that you can get pregnant. That specific number kind of varies from woman to woman depending on the cycle and things like that. And it does take a little bit of time and, you know, education into learning when your fertile days are in your cycle. However, from the research that I've done, that fertility tracking is actually more effective than any other birth control method out there if you do it properly. If you do want to do something that is more natural, I would highly recommend you looking into some type of fertility tracking or things like that. I don't think the apps, like the fertility tracking apps, are actually accurate because I think that they just go by like guessing when you started your cycle and when you would be ovulating and things like that. I don't think that those are as accurate. So there's other methods, and there's more information about that in some of the resources that I'm going to share with you. But I really do believe that a huge part of connecting to your feminine energy is also connecting to your feminine body. The feminine literally is the body. The masculine is the mind, the feminine is the body. And connecting to and honoring your feminine body and your feminine hormones, your feminine cycle is a huge part of connecting to your feminine energy. And it's beautiful, and I feel like so many women are ashamed of their cycles. I mean, I love my cycle now. I really do. Like, I love embracing all the aspects of my cycle. I don't dread it anymore, which I did for so many years. I actually learned to love it and embrace it. And if you're going to connect to your feminine energy, it really means loving the parts of yourself that make you a feminine being. So I'm not telling you what to do medically or how to handle things medically. All I'm saying is I think it's really important that you get to know your own body, know your own cycles. And I think it's important to connect with your intuition and stop outsourcing that information to other people, because nobody else knows your feminine body as well as you do. So a few resources I want to give to you that will dive into this stuff in much more detail. One is the book Beyond the Pill, which I think I mentioned this actually in this other one in my like masculine feminine energy books recommendations. This book was super eye-opening. It's actually written by a doctor who talks about the process of going off the pill. Also, The Fifth Vital Sign, which does have a lot of similar information to Beyond the Pill, but it's not solely focused on going off the birth control pill. It's actually focused a little bit more on your overall menstrual cycle. To be honest, I really thought these books were going to be super boring because I don't tend to like reading very sciencey books, but I couldn't put them down. Like, I went through these so quickly because there was so much information in here that I was just like absorbing into my brain. So I highly recommend these books if you want to learn to connect with your menstrual cycle. If you're thinking about going on hormonal birth control, you're thinking about coming off of it, these books are great resources. I'm not going to get into fertility in this video at all, but I do think that one of the big reasons why we have a fertility crisis in our society, and it's not just older women, younger women are having increasing rates of fertility issues, because of the things that are found in our foods, the chemicals that are found in just our everyday life in our environment, and that's screwing up people's fertility, that's screwing up people's menstrual cycles, their hormones, all this kind of stuff. Like, we are pumping women in general, men and women, but in this case I'm talking about women, full of so much extra estrogen, so many extra chemicals that are affecting our hormones. Like, I mean, if I can give you one piece of advice, don't ever eat soy again. It's the devil. Like, I'm just saying, soy is evil. Please stop eating soy. If you do nothing else, just please stop, because that will change your life. It will change your skin. It will change your life. Like, cut soy out of your diet. It's hard to do because soy is in everything, but cut that out of your diet. But it's not just soy, but that's a big one. There's so much in our environment and everything, and I mean, I could go off on this for a long time, but I won't. I'm sure this video is already pretty long. As women, it's so important that we honor our bodies. We honor our feminine bodies. We honor our feminine intuition. And again, none of this is a substitute for medical advice. I just want to see women be informed and to see women make decisions that are in the best interests of their body. Yeah, connecting to your feminine energy is not just connecting with, you know, how you look. It's literally how you feel on the inside. This video was a requested video to talk about cycles and to talk about the effects of hormonal birth control and things like that. Check out those other books I recommended for more information on these topics. And yeah, I really hope that this video was helpful, because I think that this information really needs to be more common. The fact that there's so many women out there, there's women out there who I know who have had babies, who have no concept for their actual reproductive organs. And it's like, you've used your reproductive organs to their fullest and you still are not educated about all of the structures of your body. I mean, women have a right to know about their bodies and to understand their bodies. And I think more women need to step up and say, yes, I own my body and I own the right to know more about this, to get the education around this. And yeah, I want to see more women being able to enjoy being in a feminine body and not see it as a burden, but see it as a blessing. So I hope this video was helpful. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up and be sure you subscribe to my channel. If you have any thoughts on this topic, any other topic requests, anything, let me know. Leave a comment in the comment section below. I love to hear from you. I love your suggestions. If you want to learn more about connecting to your feminine energy, I have online courses, details in the description box below, along with links to all my social media accounts. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.